Sometimes it feels like the words get stuck. The idea is in your head, but when it's time to express it, it doesn't come out the way you wanted. Sometimes you even speak, but then you're left with that strange feeling like, did they really understand me? Did I say something dumb? And then, instead of expressing yourself with confidence, you start avoiding certain situations, staying quiet in meetings, holding back your opinion in important conversations. And worst of all, you begin to believe that you are the problem. But you're not. The truth is, no one ever taught you how to communicate. You grew up hearing things like speak properly, be clearer, or get to the point. But no one ever explained how to do that. No one ever gave you a map, a simple step-by-step. That's why expressing yourself well seems like a talent you're born with. But it's not. It's practice. It's a method. It's understanding how communication really works. The first step is realizing that communication doesn't start when you open your mouth. It starts before that. When you think about what you want to say. When you organize your thoughts in your head. Most people think that communicating well is about speaking eloquently or using fancy words, but it has nothing to do with that. Good communication is about being understood. And for that, you need to simplify. Think about who's listening to you. Use everyday words, short sentences, natural rhythm. Good communication starts with clarity, not formality. Let's picture a common scene. You're explaining something to a coworker or just chatting with friends, and you start getting tangled up. The person furrows their brow, makes that face like they didn't get it. Then comes the anxiety. You try to explain again, but it only gets worse. This happens because you're trying to think and speak at the same time. Your brain is too busy organizing ideas while your mouth is already trying to keep up. The result? A mess of words. But if you just paused for 2 seconds before speaking, took a deep breath and asked yourself, what's the main point I want to get across here? Everything would change. Clarity comes from the pause, from not rushing to respond, from letting silence be part of the conversation. People who communicate well aren't afraid to pause for a second. And that's not a sign of insecurity, it's a sign of intelligence. When you pause, you organize your thoughts, you choose your words better, you connect with your listener, and they feel that you're in control of the conversation. Another essential point is rhythm. People who speak too fast often come across as anxious or nervous. People who speak too slowly can seem boring. The secret is to vary. When something is important, you can slow down, emphasize, and when it's something light, you can pick up the pace a bit. That variation makes your speech more natural and engaging. It's like telling a story. You don't tell everything the same way at the same speed. You create rhythm, pauses, intensity. Now think of a practical example. Imagine you need to explain an idea in a work WhatsApp group. Instead of sending a long and confusing message, you write something like this. Guys, I thought of a solution to speed up the process. If each of us does a part and we divide the delivery steps, we can finish everything by Friday. I can draft a breakdown and you can adjust it if you want. Simple, direct, with a clear proposal. That's efficient communication. And if you're in a job interview and the recruiter asks, tell me a bit about yourself, instead of getting lost telling your whole life story, respond with structure, where you are now, what you've done that's relevant, and where you want to go. Example, I currently work in customer service. I've also worked in sales, and I enjoy understanding people's behavior. Right now, my focus is to grow in the management area, so I've been dedicating myself to courses and practices in that direction. Done. Just the right amount of information. Another common mistake is thinking you have to sound smart all the time. That creates a barrier. You start using complicated words, long sentences, and you lose the connection with your audience. Good communication isn't about impressing. It's about building bridges. When you speak in a simple way, people understand you, connect with you, trust you more. This applies to everything: meetings, presentations, conversations, videos. Be accessible. Now, a practical exercise. Every time you're going to say something important, imagine you're explaining it to a 12-year-old. That's not about dumbing things down, it's about making them clearer. If a child understands, any adult will too. This forces you to think better, cut the fluff, and focus on the core message. Practice this in front of the mirror, with a friend, or by recording voice notes to yourself. Progress comes with repetition. And speaking of practice, a great way to unlock your communication is to expose yourself a little each day. It could be by recording stories, joining more group conversations, asking questions in meetings, or explaining something simple to someone. Don't wait to feel ready. You improve by doing. By trying, failing, adjusting, and trying again. Communication is a muscle. The more you use it, the more natural it becomes. There's also a small detail that makes a big difference. Look people in the eyes when you talk to them. Even in a video call, try to maintain eye contact. It shows presence, confidence, and makes the other person feel like you're really there. Communication isn't just what you say, it's how you present yourself. Posture, tone of voice, facial expression, everything communicates. Another thing that holds many people back when speaking is the fear of judgment. The person thinks so much about what others will think that they freeze up before even trying. This fear is paralyzing. And the most curious part is that most of the time, no one is actually judging you. People are too concerned with themselves. They're thinking about their own words, their own mistakes. When you understand that, expressing yourself becomes lighter. You realize you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be genuine. Now, a valuable tip. Instead of trying to appear right all the time, focus on being helpful. Every time you're going to communicate, think, how does what I'm about to say help in any way? That shifts the focus away from you and onto the message. And when the message becomes more important than your ego, communication flows. You stop trying to appear as something and start truly saying something. And that connects much more. Want a practical example of this? Imagine you're giving a work presentation. Instead of trying to use complicated words to show you studied a lot, you focus on showing how that solves a real problem. You speak directly, with simple examples and clear logic. The result? Everyone understands, trusts you, and the content becomes much more impactful. And if you feel like you never know what to say in the moment, here's a secret. Being a good listener is one of the best ways to be a good communicator. We have this habit of thinking that the person who talks the most is the best communicator. But that's not really true. Those who listen carefully speak more accurately, because they understand the other person better, pick up on intentions, perceive what's behind the words, and that gives you the confidence to respond clearly and purposefully. In fact, many people get lost in conversations because they don't truly pay attention. They're just waiting for their turn to speak instead of actually listening. And then, when they talk, they say something generic that doesn't connect. Now, when you truly listen, your response makes sense, has weight, and the other person feels understood. That builds respect and trust, whether in personal or professional conversations. Another practical tip: practice telling stories. Stories are powerful communication tools. They don't have to be anything elaborate. Just describe an everyday situation in an engaging way. For example, instead of saying, "the service was bad," you could say, "I got to the place, waited over 20 minutes standing, and no one even looked in my direction. It felt like I was invisible." That creates imagery, emotion, and grabs the listener's attention. Our brains love stories. Use that to your advantage. In fact, telling personal stories, even small mistakes or funny situations, humanizes your speech. People relate more to those who show imperfections than to those who try to seem flawless. When you allow yourself to be human, communication becomes lighter, more real, and that draws people closer. Oh, and there's something subtle but very powerful: your tone of voice. Many times, the right message delivered in the wrong tone sounds aggressive or uninterested. Tone is what gives life to your words. A dry "good morning" doesn't have the same effect as a cheerful one. Intonation conveys emotion, intention, connection. That's why you should practice speaking with real intention behind your words. It makes all the difference. And here's a simple exercise to practice this. Choose a short text, even a WhatsApp message, and read it out loud, trying to convey different emotions. Read it once with anger, then with joy, then calmly. This will give you vocal control and show how the same sentence can sound completely different depending on your intention. This kind of training builds awareness. Now, if you want to improve even more, start observing great communicators. Watch videos, lectures, interviews, and analyze how these people speak. Notice the rhythm, the pauses, the expressions they use. Not to copy them, but to understand the patterns. You'll notice that the best communicators are simple, direct, and confident. They don't complicate, they connect. And don't be too hard on yourself for making mistakes. Even great communicators mess up. The difference is that they don't stop because of it. They adjust along the way. They keep going. Fluency in speech comes when you understand you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. That your voice has value, even if your hands tremble at first. And with time, that goes away. What was once fear becomes confidence. What was once a block becomes a bridge. To wrap up, remember this: good communication trans lives. It opens doors, creates opportunities, improves relationships, builds careers, and it's within your reach. You don't need to wait until you have the perfect vocabulary or take an expensive course. Just start, one step at a time, with awareness, with intention, with practice. Your voice matters, your ideas deserve to be heard, and the more you practice, the more natural it all becomes. If this content helped you in any way, if you felt like you learned something new or saw clarity where there was once confusion, consider subscribing to the channel. That way you help me keep bringing more content like this. And feel free to leave a comment below. In what moment of your life do you find it hardest to communicate? Let's talk about it.